Hello, my quilting friends. Leah Day here with a new Sit Down Sunday episode. I received so many questions over the last week about the Grace Qnique machine, this new table-mounted long arm that I'm going to be quilting on for this new series. And the most common question, the one that I received most often, was about tension and how you set up the machine and get good tension for quilting. So here's the basic steps. You want to start with your bobbin case first. I think this is really important. So make sure that you have wound your bobbin properly. And the nice thing is it does come with a bobbin winder on the top of the machine, so that's real easy. So wind that bobbin up and install it. And then this is what I call the yo-yo test. So basically, if I start up here at the top and I'm holding the thread, I've wound the bobbin case with the bobbin, and then I drop my hand down, it doesn't just drop straight to the floor. There's enough tension in this that it slowly slides down, and that is good tension to me. We can play with it if it needs to be loosened up just a little bit. You know, of course you can play with that. There is basically 2 screws on the sides of the bobbin case. The smaller screw is the one that you don't touch. The bigger screw is the one that actually adjusts the tension, and you can refer to your manual to know which way to turn that in order to tighten up your tension. So don't be afraid to make this adjustment. It really can help. So now that that is set, I'm going to install it in the machine, and then we'll work on the top tension next. So I have wound the top thread through the machine, and I am using the same thread in the top and bobbin of the machine, and I think that's really important because that will automatically help the thread balance better. So I'm using Isacord white thread in the top and in the bobbin, and here's something that I really think is important. You need to double check the threading. You have kind of a loopy loop around this post. You go through this upper tension disc here, then this lower tension disc, then up and around. And here's something that I was missing. There is an extra guide down here right at the needle area. And I missed this a few times and started getting bad tension. And it was simply because I was hitting this one, but when my needle was in the up position, it was easy to forget to hit this one right here at the needle. And I was getting bad tension. I mean, it looked terrible in the back. So keep in mind that you can miss one little guide, and that will make a really big difference in how your stitches look. Once this guide, for some reason, I think the thread just kind of looped out of it and just hopped out of it, so it was going straight from the tension disc to this guide, and that didn't work as well. So keep in mind that these guides are there for a reason, and they really do make a big difference. Double and triple check your threading every time you start and stop quilting, every time you change thread colors, simply because that can have a really big impact on your quilting. So when I start to test, and I'm getting ready to start testing now, I like to work with a scrap sandwich like this. And what a scrap sandwich does for us is it keeps the quilting on something that's not the real quilt. So if the stitching is ugly, then we're not going to have to rip it out. This is all test. And I think a great place to start is just some simple wiggly U-shapes. You have a nice straight line and then do a curve over about 1/2 inch to stitch your next line. What this is going to do is it's going to give you 2 different things to look at as you check your tension. You're going to have that nice straight line. You're also going to have that arch or curve shape, and you're going to be able to see what's going on with your tension really easily. So you can flip up the back and take a look at your stitches, and I think these are looking pretty good. I can see each stitch so that it's not just like, it doesn't look like a straight line of stitching. They're very well delineated, which means that I have good balance in my tension. Where the threads are looping together is in the middle of the quilt. If I take a look at the top, I'm just going to clip these thread tails away so that way they're not in your way. And looking at the top is the same way. I'm noticing just ever so slight difference between when I'm stitching forwards and when I'm stitching backwards. And that could just be, you know, something I'm noticing. Maybe I'm putting my foot down more. Maybe I'm increasing my speed as I stitch backwards. Keep in mind that this is free motion quilting, and that when you're free motion quilting, speed and movement ratio, how you're moving your hands on the quilt and how you're pressing the gas and operating the machine, that really does play a difference in your stitches. And sometimes you can get a speed movement issue that looks like a tension issue. and it's actually not. So I'm going to actually change my tension. This is actually in really good tension, but I'm going to actually loosen this up and show you what it looks like whenever it's badly done. It's not balanced. All I've done is just change the tension on this lower dial. I've loosened it up considerably. And then now I'm going to get back to the speed that I was stitching, and we're going to take a look at these stitches. Now, it'll be really funny if there's no difference at all. You know, that'll be really weird. But I would bet that the back is going to look very, very different. So here I'm dropping my needle down, and yep, take a look at the back of that quilt. I hope you can see this. Let me flip it over all the way so you can really see it. You see how we've got nicely delineated stitches through here, and then it goes and almost looks like just a line of thread setting on the surface of the quilt. If you see something like that, then you can see loops from the top thread on the back, then that means your top tension is too loose and that you need to tighten it up. So now let's go in the opposite direction. I'm going to tighten this up so much, I'm going to tighten it up too much, and I'm going to take it too far, okay? So I'm just tightening here, and I'm going to try and make it so tight that I pull the bobbin thread up to the surface. So here I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm stitching these same wiggly U-shapes. And honestly, I think this might be a good idea for you to try to almost go overboard on your tension a little bit and then see what that looks like. And that might actually make it easier to get it balanced and correct. So here you can see, now we've got the opposite effect. Now this thread starting right here looks like it's just sitting on the surface of the quilt. If I flip it over, the back looks okay. The back actually looks pretty good now. But the front, obviously that tension is way too tight. So I'm going to loosen this up and kind of try and find a middle ground here. And I'm just going to have to play with it. I'm just going to stitch a few wiggly U-shapes, take a look at the front and the back. This is not really rocket science. You know, there's nothing real technical involved here. I'm just going to stitch a little bit, flip it up, take a look at it. If I see little dots of the thread coming through, then I know maybe my tension's still a little hot. I'll stitch a little bit more. With every little adjustment, I'm going to stitch a little bit more until I get those stitches to where they're nicely delineated on the top, and that just means that they have that little space between the stitches on the top and on the back. And I like these U-shapes mostly because they're a very simple thing to stitch. You know, they're just, I can do this in my sleep. And it's also that nice combination of a straightaway and a curve, which we really need to be able to see both. So here I flip this up. You can see really nice tension on the back. I can see each stitch. Looks really nice, and it looks really nice on the front too. So that's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed learning more about setting up the tension on your machine. Don't be afraid to touch this tension dial. It's here for a reason. Don't be afraid to change your bobbin tension either. That screw is on the bobbin case for a reason. And this is something that you need to do often, not just once in a blue moon or once ever in the life of your machine. You need to do this often. I would do this tension test every time before I'm sitting down to quilt a new quilt. If I change thread, so if I switched from Isacord that I'm using now to Arfil, I would absolutely check my tension. If it's just been a while since I touched the machine and I don't know, something could have gone wonky, James could have come in here and played with the knobs or something, I'm gonna check my tension because I wanna make sure that when I get started on a real quilt, those stitches look beautiful and they're perfectly balanced. And you can't trust it. You know, if you walk away from a machine for a week, you really can't trust it to go back to it. So pull out a scrap sandwich, run through this tension test, take it to the extremes, you know, just so that you let go of your fear of adjusting your tension and see what happens to your machine when it goes super tight or when it goes super loose. And that will really help to guide you and really help you to start seeing where that middle balanced, even stitches lie. There are a lot of situations, though, that a tension issue is not a tension issue. And this is something that's inherent to free motion quilting in general. And whether you're quilting on a long arm or you're quilting on a home machine, The key to free motion quilting is balancing your speed, that's the speed of your hands, and the speed of your needle going up and down. So a very common thing that happens, and I mentioned it in this video, and that is a speed movement issue that creates eyelashes and loops and really ugly stitches. That has nothing to do with the tension dial. That has nothing to do with the machine. That has everything to do with balancing the speed and movement of your hands and the machine. This machine does not have a stitch regulator. Like most home sewing machines don't have stitch regulators. So you're going to have to figure out how to do that, and it really just takes practice and patience. The more quilts you quilt, the better your stitches are going to look and the better balanced they're going to be. So give yourself some time, give yourself some space, and a lot of practice, because that's really the key. No matter what machine you're quilting on, the key is doing a lot of quilting. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the new Sit-Down Quilting Sunday videos we have coming out every week. Until next time, let's go quilt.